Hello, BookTube, and in the words of George R. Martin, life is miserable and full of pain, and it's not even football season yet. Welcome to Weekly Reads. Where to begin? So, with the COVID-19 pandemic, it seems to be spreading exponentially, particularly here in Texas, where earlier in the pandemic, Texas wasn't doing too badly. Now it's one of the worst hit states. Um, in my local county, the past week has seen daily upwards of 50 or more confirmed cases. Yesterday it was 79. Today 72. There's well over 600 confirmed cases and about 400 some odd currently going through it. It's just really, really rough. And particularly knowing that whereas earlier Governor Abbott was, at least as far as Texans were concerned, or at least most Texans probably were concerned, he was doing decently. I think it's now becoming clear that, whatever goodwill hope should be about. I mean, it's like just, anyway, incompetence and what have you. And then also this past week, Me Too has finally come to science fiction and fantasy. And I'm not. So, three writers, Paul Kruger, Mike Cole, and Sam Sykes, have all been accused credibly of sexual harassment and bullying at conventions and within their professional lives, in some cases. Also, Mark Lawrence has been accused of cyberbullying his critics, who are mostly women, or most of the ones he's been cyberbullying have been women. There's some weird, well, maybe weird's not the right word, but drama accusations between Scott Lynch, Elizabeth Bear, and Alexandra Rowland. And it's just been a really rough few days for science fiction fans. Anyway, moving on. I'm not entirely comfortable talking about this. I don't follow a lot of writers on Twitter, thankfully. So what I'm getting is mostly what I've been gleaning in the last few hours, and I'm not really comfortable talking in much detail. And if you're at all interested, you can always look into that yourself. Anyway, moving on to my readings. My reading week has been quite disappointing too. So let's move on to the books. So on Saturday, I started Boulevard by Jim Grimsley. It's the story of Noelle, who's a young, late teenager, 18, 19, who comes from the small town of Pastel to New Orleans. It's one of those gay novels, or I guess story where young gay man or young queer man leaves his small, usually bigoted hometown and goes to a major metropolitan area, in this case New Orleans, to live his life as he wishes to live it. And in this case, he ends up meeting a very sort of dark, proto-BDSM, Southern Gothic underbelly of the New Orleans gay scene. And I like the first part of it, even though I thought it's a little too focused on the minutiae, on really kind of it's quite plotting at the beginning. because of this focus on the minutia. And also, while the main point of view is Noel, there are 2 points inexplicably where the point of view switches to another character for a paragraph or so, and it's like, what's the point of that? And then there are points where, obviously Noel comes to New Orleans to be himself. So why exactly are there points where it seems like he's still coming to terms with his sexuality? Yeah. And then the rest of the book kind of occasionally switches perspectives, and it just really doesn't work quite well for me. So, quite disappointed. I will come back to this eventually. I have this masochistic streak where I will try to read books that have displeased me or that haven't worked for me, and try to go at them until I like them, or until I finally recognize, okay, I don't really like this book and it's time to just let go. But hopefully my opinions will change. I did like his novel Dream Boy, so yeah. Next, I read The Last Romeo by Justin Myers. I think this novel would have been, so it's about, I'm blanking on it. James. I don't know. I forgot it's my name. He's newly single after years of being in a relationship, so he's trying the dating scene through dating apps. And he hits upon the idea of blogging about his these dates in the search for essentially the last Romeo, the guy he's going to have a long-term relationship with. And so it's partly told through traditional narrative and through blog posts. And I think the novel would have been a lot stronger had it actually just been the blog posts rather than the kind of a mix blog post and traditional narrative. And also, the writing was pretty terrible. Next up, I reread A Memory Called Empire by Arkady Martine. And the first 100, 150, 200 pages are, I think, rather rough. It's not until my hit, and it's basically the story of Mahit Desmaire, who is called by her government on, it's a small collection of mining stations, to become their ambassador to the Teixeira Empire. Their previous ambassador, something's wrong with him, and Mahit goes to represent her station as well as to find out what happened to her predecessor. And she is thrust into court politics and a struggle for the imperial throne, and ultimately becomes instrumental in solving the crisis, as well as finding out what happened to her predecessor. And the first 150 pages are rather rough. Orienting the reader, and it's not really until the political element of the narrative comes through that I think the novel really starts to work. The narrative itself is, I love the plot. It's very cool, and the world building. My big issues are that Mahit, I think, is far too young to be the protagonist. It's just, why would you send a character who reads like they're in their early 20s to be an ambassador for a position that could end up seeing your station destroyed at worst, or, I guess for some people, the worst would be annexed. Who would really send a 20-something inexperienced diplomat? Although, there is that tendency in science fiction and fantasy to have characters be younger than they really should be. And then also how the embassy is set up. It's basically just her bedroom, her apartment. There's no embassy staff. She's basically given a local minder who works for the Tyson colony government. So it's just that whole part. I think it really sort of throws you out of the story, and yeah, it's not until really the main thrust of the narrative starts to take off that I think A Memory Called Empire really improves. But once it does, it is really phenomenal. Particularly as Mahit grows as a character, and the climax of the novel is just fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Okay, let's jump over. Now, I did mention last week, when I did my last weekly reads, that the next book I was going to read would be The Tiger's Daughter by Arsenault Rivera. But, yeah, I don't feel like reading this, unfortunately. I mean, I don't like the book when I read it. I mean, either time. I don't know if my opinions are going to change. I think where I'm at the moment, I seriously doubt it. So I'm going to set this aside. I might come back to it, and I might not. I don't know. But, yeah. I mean, I have some serious reservations about The Tiger's Daughter after having read it the first time. So I don't know necessarily if I want to really reread it for fear that I'm, like, right. And I'm also going to go ahead and drop Hero by Terry Moore from my TBR2 because, I mean, I've dipped into it a few times and I don't know necessarily if the writing's really for my taste, which is kind of annoying and frustrating because I do want to read superhero fiction because one of my writing projects is a superhero project. And I don't know if I should try to just stick with writing a superhero script on the off chance I might eventually find an artist or my art skills improve in a comic book direction rather than just exclusively pastel or what. I don't know. So, yeah. So maybe I'll come back to it when I'm in a better mood or more ready for it. So, instead, I'm going to start my readings for tomorrow with Underland, A Deep Time Journey by Robert Macfarlane, which, as it is for the BookTube Prize, I can only say I'm going to be reading it. And next Friday, when I have finished it, say, I have finished it. And, ooh, no. I almost whacked it against my desk. I will obviously talk about it in more depth once the results for this round of the BookTube Prize has been announced. In addition to that, once I finish Underland, which I'm expecting should be probably the beginning of next week, and if I finish before July 1st, I will probably pick a science fiction short story from an anthology. But starting July 1st, I will be starting the summer school readathon, and I'm going to start with How to Bake Pie by Eugenia Cheng and Letters from an Astrophysicist by deGrasse Tyson. So those will be the first two I start. And I will probably also dip in and out of The New Spanish Table by Anya von Bremzen. Because the next time I order groceries, I'm going to order with 2 or 3 recipes from there in mind. And I will let you know how they turn out eventually. So, yeah, my reading week has been mostly bad. I did read the March issue of National Geographic, which did improve my mood somewhat. Um, there were some fantastic articles, and they're particularly the end of trash and the honeybee article. And I also listened to some music. I listened to Has a Good Home and He Poos Clouds by Final Fantasy or Owen Pallett. And I also listened to Rainbow Boy by uh, Keenan Lonsdale, which was fantastic. So, yeah. So tonight I think I'm going to watch a pastel demo, Emma Colbert, or Colbert. I'm assuming it's proper. I think it should be Colbert. Has a 2.5 hour painting tutorial that I've been meaning to get to, so I think I'll watch that tonight. Although I might watch some BookTube because there's Steve Donahue I need to catch up on and a few other Friday reads. So anyway, I'm going to sign off for now and remind everybody, please stay safe. We are in a pandemic. It is getting worse. Please take all necessary precautions. If you are protesting, please stay safe and just be kind to each other and stay safe. Thank you, BookTube, and I will see you next week. Hopefully Monday, and if not, definitely Tuesday with a tag. Again, I obviously mentioned it in my haul video, but I'll leave it here too. If you are at all interested in seeing what my collection, at least in part, was like from about 10 to 12 years ago, do let me know in the comments, and I will think about doing either refilming it or uploading what I had on an earlier video on Monday. So again, thank you, BookTube, and have a great weekend.